And we are going live.
In 4, 3, 2, not well, maybe 2, 2.2, and then 1. All right.
Yes, and we are live with the Bowens.
Hello.
We're so excited to have the Bowens with us. So go ahead and tag someone, invite someone to be part of this awesome discussion as we talk with Coach Tim and Mrs. Kesha Bowens.
Yay.
Pastor Bell, First Lady, how y'all doing?
We're doing great.
Well. How are you?
Thank y'all for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Yes, yes.
We're glad to be here.
So far, does it? Oh, it flips. Are you gonna side by side it? Okay, he's doing something here.
We can side by side.
He's my tech person.
There we go.
That's better. Oh, you see? There we go. Okay, it's flipping. Did it flip? It didn't flip for me yet.
It's just like the light. Be patience, baby.
Oh my gosh.
How many years? 9?
10.
Patience now. Patience at a time.
Is there a light at the end of the tunnel in 10 more years? What does it look like?
Yes.
10 more years, what does it look like?
Oh, I love it.
Awesome.
I love it.
There we go. So we're
All
going to share this
right.
real quickly.
All right, I'm doing it now. Here we go. Hello, everybody that's already watching us. We are now just doing our sharing.
Yeah, we're sharing is caring. So go ahead and share with your friends also.
If you guys have watched this before, you know what we do. We're doing our sharing moment. Yes.
Awesomely excited.
All right. We have the Bowens with us. All right.
You're in.
We want to begin by first of all saying again, happy anniversary.
I got so many wishes today.
We only have months off.
It's not until November, but we'll take them early.
That's right. Happy anniversary.
No one reads anymore. We just see a post and we just jump in.
Just jump on.
Yeah.
We just jump on. Okay.
Awesome. So look, we're going to begin by first of all, we're the Bells, Leon Lady Tomika Bell. We're in Mobile, Alabama, born and raised, been here our whole life, except for that 1 year we did move to Birmingham.
Yeah, he did. The Lord did allow us to leave.
Yeah, we did escape to Birmingham for a little while. But we're excited to have with us all the way in Douglasville, Georgia, Coach, Reverend Minister, Prophet, Tim Bowens, and the lovely Mrs. First Lady, Kesha Bowens.
It's so good to be on with y'all.
Yes. For those of you, if it's your first time watching Marriage Monday, thank you for joining us. For our old viewers, hey, you guys, we are back with Marriage Monday. Awesome. So we had to find a way to be innovative with Corona, Rona, COVID out here. So we have the Bowens with us today.
We're so excited. Thanks again for joining us. Yes. We're gonna first of all begin by introducing yourselves. Tell us like how long you've been married, how and where did you meet?
Awesome. I'll start out and then I'll let her jump in.
I know where this is going.
She knows.
We have a slightly different version of our first time meeting.
Most couples do.
Yes.
Tim Bowens, Kesha Bowens. We've been married for 19 years. It's not our anniversary. We actually married in November 22nd, and it's on her birthday. We met, our first time meeting was in college at what was called the Ferguson Center at the time at the University of Alabama. And I was a freshman. She was a high school senior coming in, and she was visiting on orientation. And one of my roommates actually was from her hometown and knew her and her family. And she came by our table, and we was a couple of the fellows, players. 2 full tables of football players. It wasn't that many. It was a few of us just sitting there. And I introduced myself to her, and she introduced herself to, us, I guess us. But he was like, "This is my roommate, Tim," And so I was like, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" And so she forgot meeting me.
Well, I'm a high school senior. I'm on my orientation visit to the school.
Mhm.
And so I see, shout out to Kelvis White, he's who introduced us. And he takes me, he was like, come meet some of my teammates, my friends. And I was like, okay. And I was like shell shocked. And so he takes me over 2 full tables of players and he just starts introducing them and it's all like a blur to me. So I don't even really remember who I saw, who was sitting there. It was like a blur. But then when I met him again was on his after school started.
But long story is she married you.
That is true. That is true.
Right.
I can still imagine that being a high school senior, though. I can only imagine that.
Yes, that was a lot.
Yes.
But that's why she should have remembered it, though.
No, that's
Right.
not.
Exactly, Pastor. Thank you. Thank you.
A high school senior and the Alabama football player is talking to her.
Wait, there's a difference. She's not that type of girl. She's like, the wholesome girl.
You don't have to be that girl to know
no.
Alabama football player talking to you. You feel me, Tim?
No, it makes a difference.
Alabama football player.
It makes a difference. She was like, I would have been like, oh my God.
Yeah, like, oh my God, okay.
Girls would have been like, hey.
Right. True.
You're right.
My name Kesha. Hey.
That's true.
So that's what she was nervous.
Okay. So she
maybe that's why I liked her, I guess. Maybe
that's what it was.
Is your mom named Miss Minnie?
Yes.
Miss Minnie raised you well.
She did. I know she's watching this right now and she'll be happy to hear that.
That's it.
Miss Minnie raised
Hey,
you
Miss
well.
Minnie.
You ain't run behind the first boy you saw.
That's right. He who finds a wife, he found her, baby. He found
That's right. Found a good thing. You're right.
19 years, you're in your high school senior visit, and he sees you and beginning. So when did y'all pass cross again?
The spring, because you were pledging that fall when I started, and with football, you pledged in the spring. Well, I guess with football, and then you pledged, and so I didn't really see him, but. I guess later in the spring after he was not so busy, I get, Alabama is big. We talk about this. It is, of course, a big university, but it's also small because there's such a community within communities. And so I felt like I knew everybody, like I knew our community. We were always at events together. Gotcha. And so we would see each other at things and a bunch of us would just hang out. But then that summer, there are not as many people there for summer school. And I stayed there along with one of my good friends and he was there, of course, and, his roommates. And so we would just we hung out the whole summer. Okay. We were just always, going to eat or going, just whatever.
Tim had other plans.
it was very, we were platonic. I mean, it was all friendship with everybody. And, of course, I guess you remembered, me then, but we did have a good time. We enjoyed the summers and it wasn't very, I think at the time, University of Alabama only had maybe 10%, 8% African-Americans at the time. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot.
So we all
97. So you knew about maybe 12%, something like that. So it wasn't a whole lot. It's grown a lot now, but it was a little different then. So we were able to cross paths again. And I think I was at the time seeing somebody. She was seeing, I think, her high school boyfriend. We'll have to get to that later, but she was maybe still visiting with him. And
no.
That's gonna be in the book. You guys purchase the book, okay?
Yes, purchase the book.
It's gonna be in the book.
But I was seeing someone. So, to me, we were just still, good friends, and all of us kind of hung out together. And I think the more we was around each other, the more we grew on each other, so to speak. Not physically, but we kind of grew just getting to know each other and appreciating each other's company.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
So how long was the courtship before you knew she was the one?
We were friends throughout college. Like I said, I was dating somebody else, and I was dating a young lady who I went to high school. Well, I didn't go to high school with, but I dated her when I was in high school and all, kind of through college a little bit. And, you've been with somebody for a long time, so to speak. You think that's probably might be the person that you end up marrying. Everybody else thinks that's who you're going to marry. And same, okay. And that's who you're gonna marry. So, you know, went through college, and she came to school at college here in Atlanta, and I was in Tuscaloosa. And not that you kind of grow apart sometimes, you know, that distance kind of can do that.
Especially if you find something better.
Okay. Goodness gracious. You do that. Jeez. I'm just picking. So we began to hang out and just really enjoy each other's friendship. And you know, we took a class together. We took this class together, astronomy, and I was taking the class, and you know, we'd study together. That's when it really started. You know, we started studying together, and she was really smart. I mean, she graduated summa cum laude. I graduated, thank you, Lottie. Okay. But we're taking the class together, and you know, we're taking astronomy. We go and study, and we study. So anyway, we finished with the class. I make a C in the class. I made like a 78 or so. I can't remember, but it's close to. I made like a C in the class. She makes an A, and I'm like, what? I'm like, how did you make an A and I made a C? I don't get this. Like, what? How did that happen? And so she was like, you call that studying?
Right.
I was like, yeah, that was studying to me.
That's the only studying he did. I was like, I knew to study outside of our studying. So
she was flirting with me while I was studying. Right. So I'm studying real hard, and she's flirting. So I come out with a C and she come out with an A. So anyway.
Because look, during study time, she's flirting and then going home to study.
This
right.
And he didn't realize he should do that too.
It took me back to college for a second.
Yeah. So that's where it really started to pick up. Yeah. And I tell you, our friends, all of us kind of hung out around each other, and just, you know, like I said, my roommate was close to her and her family, and you know, almost, you know, I went to a wedding with you, I guess early.
Yeah, my freshman year.
Her freshman year, I went to a wedding with her. You know, got a chance to meet her family early, and one of my teammates, who's also from the close to her family, said, you know, we had a little thing one weekend. It was a weekend, or was it a week? I can't remember what it was. But anyways, he made a joke that
you love to say.
He made a joke. He's like, man, Kesha been loving Tim since the 3rd grade, you know.
And he loves to say that.
Even though we didn't know each other in the 3rd grade. But everybody claimed she had a crush on me. So, you know, but I'll say this though. She was the good, like you said, first, she was the good, wholesome young lady that I appreciated. And I actually said that to one of my best friends to this day. He's an athletic trainer at the University of Alabama still this day. And I remember him and I having a conversation. I said, you know what? She's one that she's good, wholesome. She's one that you would take home. And we talked about that, and we called her. She was, at the time, she was driving her sister's car because I think she had a wreck in hers.
Yeah.
And he said, TV, tell me about the tracker. Tell me. He said, man, you keep talking about her now. It must be this one's she's a little different now, you know. And so we'd have conversations and talk about her, and which of course I didn't tell her all of that.
Of course.
Because we had I didn't say we had a disagreement, but you know, we had an issue that came up that kind of separated us for a little bit. And so in college, and if she want to share that, she can. It kind of separated us a little bit. I just kind of backed off. I was like, no, I'm gonna go this direction. But it was actually a good thing at the end of the day. Yeah. Go ahead. You can share it.
So when did you know she was the one? Let's say I want to marry her.
Well, when we, like I said, we had kind of separated from then on, from that situation. I think that kind of, and I don't mind sharing it if she don't want. You want me to share it?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I'll give the short version. Okay, I'll give you the short version. That'll take me to the marriage. But the short version is the young lady that I was telling you about that I dated. She was in school, and she was actually coming up, and we were going to talk about our relationship that we once had and see if we were going to take it any further. passes, because it's getting close to graduation and you're moving on in life and all those things. And so she actually ended up staying at my place at the apartment. We all stayed there, and nothing. But she stayed there. And so Keisha's cousin actually stayed there with us that weekend.
Football weekend.
Yeah, football weekend. Her cousin actually stayed there in the house. I knew it was her cousin. He stayed there in the house, and so and friend. And so they were, of course, they told Kesha and her family. So her family kind of got the word. Kesha was upset. I mean, we were studying together. We was having a good time. We was enjoying each other's company. I don't know if I actually done too much to, maybe I had.
You know how feelings get mixed in. You're already feeling some type of way. Okay.
So anyways, yeah. So anyways, her mother gets upset. Miss Minnie gets upset. My mom, my mother-in-law, she gets upset. Sorry, mom. I have to tell the story. But, and for me, I was like, hold on now. This is too much, like what the world? What did I do to make her feel like but I think we, after that, that's when we kind of just went our way for a little bit. And then we end up coming back toward the end. And when we finished, and I graduated, and I don't ain't gonna tell her if she wants to, but I graduated, and we end up hooking up as a
I'll tell y'all, my mother told me I went to his graduation and I bought him a nice desk plate that said Coach Bowens.
We know we're on Marriage Monday though, right?
We're being transparent.
I'm very transparent.
So I bought him that for graduation, got him a sweet card, wrote him a message in it, and I was excited. My sister went with me to go to his graduation, and my mother said, make sure that that's the only present you give him for graduation. Well, 9 months later, we found out that was not the only present he got for graduation.
Birthday. This is Miss Minnie.
Miss Minnie watching too.
She told me, she was like, I told you.
Listen, for those of you who are watching, please look at Miss Minnie's dialogue down here, because Miss Minnie is all up in this. She said she's gonna listen. Miss Minnie is in this, okay?
So you gave him a dish.
This is why we love Marriage Monday.
So we end up, that ended up happening. She gets, unfortunately, I did not get to walk. She did not get to walk down the aisle with a bump. She did, but she didn't get to walk down like normal. But I'll say this right here: the best mother-in-law I can tell you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Wow. Unbelievable. Loved me like I was her son. I mean, she was hurt when her daughter was hurt, when she thought that I wronged her.
Right.
And I'll say this, even during and through all of that, Kesha had always been that person that represented a Proverbs 31 woman. She always carried herself in a certain way. Now, she had a good time in college. Don't get me wrong. Okay. I was probably right there beside her half the time. Or a fourth of the time, maybe a fourth of the time. But we would just, you could tell the friendship and the fun that we had, all of us, but just her and I, and just the time that we got to spend together, and the things that we did, like give each other presents. She gave me a little bear. Where's that bear? She gave me a bear that had my jersey number on it, had Bama 8 on it, and a little bear. And that was probably in my sophomore, junior year.
Yeah,
maybe.
Sophomore year,
junior year. And I still got that. I gave it to my son, actually.
Yeah,
so we still have it. It's
when we would be mad at each other and not talking, we would say, well, we called him TJ, and he had a Bama jersey and Bowens and an 8 on the back. And so we would say we shared custody of him. So we wouldn't speak to each other, but I'd say, when are you dropping off TJ? And he would drop him off, and I would keep him for the weekend, and then we'd have to meet to give TJ back.
This was this. Yes, we did this. This is the truth.
Really
Love it though.
and I would make sure TJ smelled like me so that could be on his mind.
So the truth is, you do. So you have 5 kids, not 4. So TJ.
Right. Yeah, TJ is we always say he's our oldest.
TJ's the oldest. Okay, TJ's the oldest.
Yes.
TJ's the oldest.
Wow.
I guess back then she liked these Teletubbies, so I bought her every Teletubby.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
so, you know,
So let's hear from you, Ms. Kesha. Let's hear from you. So what was it about him that said, you know what, although, you know, I do have this bump, I still want to spend the rest of my life with him.
third grade, happened in third grade.
Great.
Oh, no, just kidding.
Third grade.
I just saw all the qualities in him that I knew that I wanted in a husband. You know, he was, I mean, first of all, physically, I always thought he was so cute and long and lean, and he has these messed up little wheels, but
Oh, God.
you know, the way he would just run out, I didn't have to look at his face. I knew it was him because I knew his legs, I knew those feet. And so physically I was very attracted to him, but
Is that
just
stalking?
no, but
Oh,
in other ways, you know, he was so hardworking, so determined, like anything that he did, whether it was football or, you know, clubs and stuff he was involved in, even though he made that C, still classes, just everything. He worked hard, he was driven. And I just looked at him and I knew he was going to be a great man. Like I was like, I don't know, at the time I was like, I don't know what he's going to do in his career, but I know it's going to be great. And I just knew he just seemed like the guy who would just take care of you. I had some, you know, we talked about hanging out. I had some nights where, you know, he took care of me, but I could just see like all those qualities that I was looking for in a man. I saw them in him and I thought, man, this is somebody that I could have a future with. And I know I would have a great life.
Oh, that's good.
That's awesome.
That's good. I love that. I love that. I love that. Potential.
Potential.
Yep, we were engaged in
October.
We got married in November.
And
Kinda
Timothy
like
was born in February.
Right. Right.
Quick. But we had known each other so long.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it was quick as far as engagement and marriage, but just overall relationship. We just knew each other so well because we had been friends for so long.
Yeah, we had TJ for years, so
Yeah. So after getting married and you began this whole married life and now beginning a family, how did I don't know if either one of you had an idea of what you wanted marriage to look like for you growing up, or when I get married, I wanted this, and this. How did your idea of marriage align with the reality of the marriage that you both have now and had starting out?
Well, I think for me, it was different from what I thought it would be just from the beginning, as far as, you know, I was one of those that grew up with the fairy tale of, I'll, you know, go to college and graduate and start my career and date and meet my Prince Charming. And, you know, I'll have all of these little bridal teas and my bachelorette and, you know, after the engagement and, you know, big wedding and go off on the honeymoon and be married a couple years and then start a family, you know, with our kids. And, you know, I kind of thought it would go like that. And it was nothing like that because of, you know, the way we got married so fast. And, you know, we had just a small ceremony. We didn't have showers and teas and bachelorette and honeymoon and, you know, any of that. And we started with, you know, we had a couple months and then we had a baby. And then, you know, almost 3 years later, we had another baby. And so it just was like, boom. And he was coaching and I was still in college. I was a senior. And so I had to finish school and then I started teaching. And so it was just kind of almost like a whirlwind. And so it was not kind of how I thought it would be. And I think, you know, we had some great times, but we also had some times where we struggled. I think because it happened so fast, just kind of almost getting our footing of okay, this is our dynamic, this is our relationship, this is, what we need to do for each other. And we struggled, and I think it took some time for us to really get our footing. I mean, I said probably, I don't know, by year 10 or so,
yeah, 17.
I felt like I had a new marriage. Like we had gone through things and had our struggles. And then I felt like, wow, now I feel like I'm more in love now than when we got married. And I felt like that was the honeymoon period. And we finally figured it out. We figured each other out. We figured out how to communicate better, how to relate to each other. And I feel like after 10, I mean, it got way better than it had ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, that's good. And we're making the face now because we're on 10.
Because we're on 10. And we're like, Lord.
And we're like, woo, praise God. Praise
God.
See what you look forward to. Better from here.
I received that 10 turnaround.
Woo.
Yes.
It
that
is.
10 turnaround.
There's no question. I would have said, yeah, I would have said year 7. Year 7. But it was, after 7, I mean, 10, definitely. Definitely the better half. The better half of our years. But I tell you, she hit it on the head. I tell you, you go through your ups and downs in marriage. You go through times where, I mean, and I'll share, there's times we were separated, in our marriage, and we were able to come back, and the Lord, I mean, I was literally driving, recruiting. I think this was probably year 7. No, this may have been year 6 or something in our marriage. And I'm driving in Mississippi recruiting, going to see this kid. And I'm, and we're in a debacle of what's going on in our marriage, and trying on the doorstep of divorce, and ready to go our separate ways. Just ready to go our separate ways.
Yeah.
And man, I remember seeing a sign, and I was just, I'm literally praying. I'm actually praying, not that I'm living the life I need to live, but I'm praying, because I tell you, the first 6 years after we went, because, you get married, you have a child. I'm trying to figure out how we going to, all of a sudden debt just start coming out of nowhere at your eyeball. And you're like, what in the world? How is this getting accumulated? And thank God, right before that, not long before that, I was praying, Lord, you be careful what you pray for, because I was praying, Lord, show me something. And that's when I started listening to Dave Ramsey. And I was driving down the road, and I was listening there, and learned. And this guy was talking about getting out of debt and all that. And I was like, man, I'm God Almighty. Because first thing I heard was, you always gonna have debt. You're gonna have bills. You're gonna have this. You're gonna have that. And so I took on that mentality. And then here my marriage was going into shambles, and my relationship and my marriage, and just going left. And so I can remember being in Mississippi, and I see this, I'm driving back, and me and my wife, literally, Kesha and I we separated. And she was living in one city, I was living in another city. And man, I can remember just, I'm bawling, I'm praying, I'm bawling my eyes out, driving in Mississippi. And I see a sign that says, go back.
Wow.
Go back. And I drive back, and I go to church in Birmingham, go to Pastor Moore at Faith Chapel Christian Center there. And man, he was up there preaching, and he said, and I know I probably skipped a bunch of stuff that they asked him, but he was up there preaching, and he said, there's somebody in here that you prayed for something, and I want to let you know the Lord said, go back.
Wow. And
he said, you need to come down. And I walked down there. I couldn't even wait. I walked down, back to the house, knocked on the door. Said, I don't even know what you're doing, no one knows what's going on, but I'm supposed to come back. And there I was, back. And so, just turbulence times that you just, because you look on the front end of your marriage, and look on the back end, you look what you go through, you look how you get there. It's always, you can go back and reflect, and you can go back and see, what was the turn? What was the thing that helped you? What was the things that were great? What were the things that were bad? But at the end of the day, I think family was the most consistent for us. That was the best thing that we had going through it. My family and her family, her mother was unbelievable. Her family was unbelievable in the midst of it. So, we've been very, very blessed when it comes to that. So.
Wow.
I don't know how I got over there, but I did.
How long were you both separated before you just went back?
Almost close to a year, maybe 10 months.
I mean,
was it that?
I don't think it was that long. I think it was maybe separate rooms.
Yeah, and then we moved.
And then kind of a separate place and talking to attorneys and thinking, all right, we're going to do this. And, telling our children and dealing with that. And, he was kind of telling what was happening on his end. I remember I was at school one day. I was sitting at my desk. I think my kids were like at PE or something. And I just felt like God was talking to me. And he said almost the same thing, but it's not over. And I thought, yes, it is. Like we've come, I don't see how this can be fixed. Mm-hmm. And I went to one of my good teacher friends next door. And I said, I feel like God is saying to me that it's not over. And she was like, wow, well, just listen to him. It may not be. And I was like, but I feel like if I don't end it and, like I let him come back and we try to work it out, people will look at me crazy. Like, why would you let him come back? Why would you give this another chance? And she said, all the people that are saying that are at home with their husbands. You have to make that decision for you. You're not with yours. And that same day that I was sitting and I talked to her and had heard God, he texted me and said, do you think God has a plan for us? And of course I was trying to be all hard. So I was like, do you mean about the kids? Like, I don't want to talk about us. We can talk about the kids. That's all we have to talk about. And he was like, no, not about the kids, for us, for you and me. And I was like, I don't know. And he said, I want to come by there. And that's when he came over that night. And we actually watched Fireproof.
Oh, did we?
Yes. And talked. And our oldest son's birthday his party was the next day, actually. And we were there. And it didn't take, that was in February. Within a month, he was back home. We went to a Brian McKnight concert for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, here we did.
We just started talking, hanging out, and it just.
We started dating.
We started dating again.
And I tell you, it was interesting because when I say we, when you make that decision to separate and you're on the doorstep of divorce, it gets ugly, when it comes to everything that comes with those things. And so, I didn't see it. Literally our only conversations for a while, for months was, what time you come to get them? What time you seeing them? What day are they staying with you? Okay, bye, boom. That was it. And all of a sudden I sent a message out of nowhere, literally I'm coming up there. I'll be there in a little bit, And so, there's times where, I know when God speaks to me and he says, do something, and of course, the sign said, go back. I'm sitting there in tears and I'm moved on and, and we've moved on and everything and go back. And I'm like, oh Lord Jesus, I was praying, but I wasn't necessarily praying for my marriage at the time. I was just praying for guidance and direction. Lord, show me, give me direction, help me. Yeah. And so, and when I said, oh my God, go back. So then I go home, I'm like driving all the way home. It took me about 3.5, 4 hours to get back. And I said, for some reason, Lord directed me to go to Birmingham. I wasn't even staying in Birmingham at the time. It was in Tuscaloosa. So I went to Birmingham with the church up there. And that whole deal happened. And I was like, all right, God, I hear you. All right, Lord. All right. You got to tell me twice, even though you just told me twice, but you don't have to tell me a third time. So that's kind of where it went.
Man, that's an awesome story. I guess one that we neither one of us knew about. But I guess the question I have for both of you, because the Lord spoke to you both on this during the same time, and I know even in our marriage when I know I'm supposed to go back and make it right or supposed to go back and apologize, that other little man on the show, like, but you ain't did anything wrong. You know, you gonna look like a punk. You know, how do you, when you're at the brink of divorce and really at the point of talking to lawyers and, you know, drawing up papers, and how do you put your pride to the side and go back and say, I want to save my marriage?
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, that was a struggle for me, because I think I was concerned about what people would think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, she's gonna let them come back. They're gonna, you know, try again. Like, this is crazy. And so I think hearing that, I kind of hesitated. But when I knew, like, the way it happened, where right after that, I got that message, I was like, okay, I know that's God. And he's telling us both the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I just had to block out anything else other than, do I want my marriage to work? Do I want my husband? Do I want our family to be whole? And that's my number one priority right there. So I had to just forget about what people might think, what it might look like, and, you know, trust God to fix my marriage.
Amen. That's good. That's good.
You gonna add anything to that, Coach?
Well, I you know, they say, you know, if you got a good one right there, you done found a good thing. So, you know, it's hard to come behind my wife, but let me just say, you know, for me, you know, when you do get into a place where pride is in, or your ego is in the way, I think that's one thing that I've learned. Even though, you know, when you get into a marriage and they're separated, there was some type of, you know, there was some type of ego or pride or some type of something that got in the way somewhere along the way. And so for me, I guess, and I hate to say sports, but that's one thing that did teach me. It taught me how to be a team player. It taught me how to move myself out of the way. I learned a lot of that. It taught me how to serve. That's one thing that I was able to learn from my coaches and the people that I was around. And, you know, the stick-to-itiveness that you can have through adversity and all that stuff, which it helped me. You know, I can look back and see times that we were able to overcome some things and through just athletics and sports. Because you look back in life and you look back for those references in your family and you see, you know, somebody who may have hung through or somebody who may have failed and all those things. And you say, I don't want to be like that person. I don't want to be like this person, or I would like to be like these people. And I think that, you know, for me, pride wasn't so much of an issue because I wanted to get it right. I wanted to, and even in the midst of us being separated and me, being transparent, I'd already started basically seeing somebody else. And I was already talking to another pastor who was actually helping. He told me this, and it kind of hit me. He said, either you're going to go back or you're not. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. He goes, either you're going to want your family or you're not. I was like, okay, dog. Either you're going to do this or do that. And he kept hitting me with this or that, didn't it? He goes, but remember this, God loves you. Yeah. And he said, you know what? I believe that, you know, because you're asking me these questions, because of this, I believe you're going to do the right thing. And, you know, I think sometimes, you know, just because we do a good thing and in that moment and for the people that are right there doesn't mean it's the right thing. And so I knew knowing to do the right thing, that was important to me. It was about me moving my ego out of the way, my whatever out of the way, my selfishness, or whatever the case may have been, to move it out of the way and say, Lord, what are you saying about marriage? What do you really want me to do? And, you know, I think there are plenty of opportunities to look back scripturally and all that, but you know, I'm looking for today, Lord, what do I do in my marriage? And so
it's good.
God was able to just show me. I mean, it was almost like he was audibly saying, go back. It was audibly like he was just saying, you know, and then confirming it. And then, you know, talking to the men that was also in my wife's family, you know, talking to my own mother, you know, and those things helped me out more than anything.
Man.
That's good. That's good.
Awesome.
So tell us this. So what did you two see growing up as far as marriage? So we know kind of the background story, but I know some people don't. So did you guys see marriage growing up? Like, were your parents married? Were you come from a divorce background? Or tell us about your background for some people that are watching so that they can know your background as far as marriage goes.
Right.
Well, I think I kind of grew up with the cookie cutter, all-American family life. My parents have been married almost 42 years, 42 years this summer. My grandparents have been married, 60,
at least
70.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they're in their 80s and they've been married since like 18. So grandparents on both sides, married, parents, aunts, uncles, we were that, family was all I knew. I kind of had a almost jaded view of the world because it was just, everything was family. When I was a freshman in college, I was inducted into an honor society. My whole family came, like parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. People would make fun of me because they'd be like, oh, we got to get the Rita section over here because her whole family come to everything. But that's how I grew up family and marriage and couples. And so that's what I thought, everything was family. It'd be weird to me when like somebody didn't have their mother at something or didn't have the same kind of home. Cause I'm like, this is what family does. Everybody's together. You come and support each other. So that was my world.
And see, our son broke his arm and there were like 30 bells at the hospital for a broke arm. Our first year marriage, and my family's small. So I'm just sitting there like, okay, is your auntie, uncle, your other auntie, uncle, your second and third cousin, what's that? He just broke an arm. I mean, the hospital is full with bells for a broke arm.
That's exactly my family.
Yep, that's good. He over there laughing. He said a word. Yeah.
He's not lying.
I'm like, it's just a broken arm. Everybody want to come in and do visitations. I'm like, it's just a broken arm.
Yep. So for me, I grew up. My biological father was not with my mother, and I grew up not really seeing him. And so my stepdad ended up taking me in when I was 4. When I was 4 years old, me and my brother. And so I learned to, and of course I kept my grandmother's big name, Bowens, and his last name is Roach. And so I ended up keeping that name. And at one point I thought about changing my name to Roach. I mean, my brother's last name's Ed, but I grew up and I was able to see a hardworking stepfather. I mean, he worked. I mean, if you had to say one thing about him, he was probably one of the hardest working men I've ever been around or seen in my life ever, and still to this day. And so I tried to take on those things that I saw from him when it comes to work, because I believe that, the hard work and what he sacrificed and how he tried to do his best here. He has 2 young children come in that's not his own, but he said, we were his own. And then also with the other 2, my other 2 brothers that were from him. And so we were blessed to be able to see that and have a man in the household. But, I was kind of reluctant at first. I was, I didn't want to be receptive as the others or my other brother, because, I was, sometimes you get to be 4 and whatever, and you at least get a chance to be, kind of visit and see your dad, whatever. So you kind of like, okay, why can't I go see him or whatever? And so what happens to you is you can build up resentment in there, even at a young age. And so for me, I was able to see it from a little different perspective. Yes, we have family that tried to come and support or that would support, but at the end of the day, you still had, there can be some divides in your family when you start having the blendeds and the things that can happen, the dynamics that come with that. But for the most part, like we were, and I'll say this, my family, I mean, my mother and my dad, Fred, I'm telling you, they were really, really very, just supportive and always tried to be at everything that they could be at. And he worked hard so he could he would work all the way up until when it was time to jump in the car and drive to Tuscaloosa to come to a football game, and then turn around and go back and go work again. just so he could make it happen. And I tell you that part and seeing that and having that appreciation of who he was and my mother and how she was. And, she was a young teenage mom, growing up and trying to get it right in life and just had, grew up and probably role models wasn't the best at times, had some that was good. Some of my aunts were good and ended up, thankfully all of them have done good. But, we all are able to see, she was able to see that part. I was able to see mine, but then, being able to experience both worlds, I think it's helped me with what I do in life right now, because now I'm able to see a lot of walks of life, walk through those doors where I'm at now as a head coach, and I'm able to help, me. Not everybody get an opportunity to have both mom and dad there, and sometimes it's only mama, sometimes it's only daddy or only grandma. So I tell people, I mean, it's just the decisions that some people have made that's put us in these situations, but because I've been through them, I want to be better because of them. So that's kind of my background in marriage and what I was able to experience and see.
Yeah.
But for me, it's been very beneficial though.
And that's good. And I will say this: a while back, Miss Minnie, she's on here, and a while back, she said how hardworking you are. So she said that part back then. So hey, she notices it. She said mother-in-law notices it. Yeah, she does. And she actually did make the statement that she prays for you a little harder than she does for Kesha.
I'll say this.
That is true.
I'll say this now. She is like if anything is happening, going down to this day, from day one, if anything, it doesn't matter. I promise you, for the 6 weeks that when Kesha went through her situation, which we may get to later, my mother-in-law was here every day, and I tell you, I was, one day I was driving home and man, I broke down, man. I was like, man, I'm thankful that her husband, my father-in-law, allowed her to stay here with us for 6 weeks. And, she went home and turned around and said, I got to go do this. And she came back the next day. And I was just like, wow. I mean, she cooked, she cleaned, she did everything. The kids got them to school. And I'm getting a little teary-eyed talking about this. I'm trying to laugh, keep me crying because, as a coach, you don't have a lot of time at home during the fall, and you're not here. I mean, it's tough. And my mother-in-law, she literally, put her life on hold, and I'm very thankful for that.
And I want to say this: our first year of marriage, we had a little argument one day, and Tim was like, "I'm gonna just leave, just give us some space. I'll be back later." And I was like, "Okay," and he left, and so I called my mother and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, after a few minutes, and I was like, "I'm just here doing whatever." And she's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Well, I just had a little bit of a disagreement with Tim, and so he just left to give some space." And she goes, "Oh, Tim is outside playing basketball with your brother." So then I really got upset because I was like, "Why is he at my mama's house?" That's my family. You go somewhere else.
What your own family be with?
But it just shows, just from the beginning, what a special relationship has been, and how he felt like we could have an argument, but he could go to my parents' house and hang out over there.
Even during, during our separation, sitting down with her dad and sitting down with her aunt, even in the midst of it, and them, saying, "Hey, you're still my son. I love you," and this and that. And so it's family, to me, when people ask, whether it's our program, whatever, I talk about our foundation is family. I mean, it's relationships and ultimately family. So relationships are so important to me. And I don't try to just say it. I try to be about it, and I try to make sure that I exemplify that. And I think when people hear your story, know who you are, and how you operate on a day-to-day basis, they can tell if you are or not. And I try to work at it. I got to be intentional, because sometimes, the coach in me, tells me to go do this, go work extra this or do that. But at the end of the day, I look at the coaches that I'm with, and I want them with their families. Because I'm going to be with mine. And I try to make sure that we show an example.
Wow.
That's good.
That's good.
That's real good.
Bowens look, we're already like almost an hour into this interview.
Oh wow.
Wow.
It's been going good. Like, I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have a few more minutes to keep going?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because
We're good.
It has been
I
great.
know where to be tomorrow.
Right, you know. Who's going somewhere tomorrow? Who's going somewhere? Who's
Let me tell you, this has been great, and I don't know. I know people that have been watching have been blessed, but I have been blessed.
It blessed me too.
Oh,
Good.
Every time we do it, oh God,
It's always a blessing just to share. But usually, like I said earlier, you know, you guys are our first live couple. Usually it's pre-recorded, and we have
that's right.
like a hour and a half of footage that we chopped down to
yeah.
the small unedited footage today.
Good stuff.
And you had a lot of leaders I kind of want to hit to. I think I want to go to first is the health, the situation with Kesha Strong, and just sharing that and how that impacted your marriage, your relationship, and just even balancing all of that and still maintaining a level head as a husband, a father, and a coach. You know, how was that with the family? First of all, you know, what happened for those who don't know the background story.
Well, let me start it out because you know, of course, as a husband, you're like, you know, and then I'm young, you know, I'm like, hey, I'm young, you know, she's young.
Yeah.
You know? And then she called me and says, hey, the doctor says he thinks I need to do this. And I was like, but what? Like, what we need to go? Why you need to go back and do this? You know, of course, me, I'm a believer, you know, I'm sitting there like, you know, not in this house, you know, what's going on? And so, of course, you know, every time you see it from my perspective, I'm a pretty positive person, I think. I'm very optimistic.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very positive and optimistic, but I'm a realist as well. And I was like, you know, well, what do you need to go back to the doctor for? Like, what do we
give them the timetable? It was
go ahead. You get
right
a
after
timetable.
after we moved. Of course, I turned 40 now, almost 2 years ago. But I'd had my first mammogram in Mobile, and then we moved, you know, at the end of May, and they sent me a letter that they just wanted to take another look. They wanted me to have another mammogram, and so I was like, oh, we've already moved, but they set it up for me to go here in Douglasville, and so I went in for a mammogram. The radiologist wanted to talk to me afterwards and said they had seen something that they wanted to double check. And so they scheduled me a few days later to go see a specialist and talk to him and schedule a biopsy. So I think that's where you're.
No, go ahead. You keep telling.
So anyway, so I had a biopsy and they had found some calcifications and had a biopsy and got the results back that it was cancer in 3 spots. And so anyway, it was just a crazy time because we had just moved and he's working on his football stuff. I'm, you know, moving into our new home, learning our city, getting my kids registered for school, starting my new job, trying to get my classroom together, and then to get, you know, this bombshell that kind of dropped on us. And so my summer just became a whirlwind of appointments. I met with the genetics. I had an MRI. I had another MRI guided biopsy. It was just appointments and procedures and all of that. So anyway, I had surgery. I had a left partial mastectomy on August 23rd. I started school on August 7th. Our oldest son started college. So I took him the next week to move him in at college, which was emotional. I thought that was the only emotional thing that we would have to face this year, but took him to school. And then the following week I had surgery and recovered, you know, was out about another week. And then October, November, and the first part of December, I had radiation treatments. I would leave school, drive 30 minutes to the hospital, have treatment, come back home every day for 6 weeks. And went through all that. And then in January, I started the medication that I'll be on for the next 5 years. So that's kind of been the past year.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Kesha go. Don't look like no smoke on her, don't she? She all right. No fireproof.
Even through the process of when
No
she
smoke.
first announced it, and you never saw her miss a beat at all. And I can only imagine as a husband what goes through your head throughout all of this, because even as a coach, she had this procedure in August. That's like at the highlight of football season.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so how
Thinking, can you do surgery before the first game so I won't miss any games? That's what I was saying.
Keisha strong. Keisha strong.
Keisha strong, exactly.
I tell you, the support, my wife, I mean, you're talking about a head coach's wife. There's no better. It's kind of like being a first lady. And that's what some of the coaches do call her first lady.
First lady.
And they call her first lady because, I think ultimately at the end of the day, your strongest staff is the wives are a lot of times, and just the togetherness that you have there. And for her to go through what she went through, and then I think that, have her family support, but also have the support of the wives that was there, the people that she was around. And a lot of those wives were people that coaches that I had been with in prior places. And so I had relationships with a lot of them in the profession. So that, to me, that was good for us going in it. And, it was interesting. It was a challenge because, because you asked the Lord, why are we at this point in our life right now? Like, why? Here I am, just took the head coaching job. You know how much it's going to take out of me to get this thing where we need it to go, and the people's life we got to pour into. And like I said earlier, her mother was here with us, and I was able to still spend the time I need to spend, and we practice in the morning. So, I mean, I'd pull up at the office probably around 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. And, and we practice in the mornings very early. So you're talking about early mornings, late at night, and some nights I'd get home for dinner. Most of the time I thought I got home for dinner. I tried to be home for dinner at least. And because I knew front end, I wasn't going to see him at all. And so, and of course her mother would cook and I'd go straight to the kitchen half the time, but
he enjoyed that.
I enjoyed that. But, being a coach's wife, I mean, I know for her, it's challenging because you don't get your husband a lot of times of the year. I mean, he's gone. And I shout out to all those pastors' wives, coaches' wives, because so many people are pulling on you and you got to answer a lot of questions. You got to do a lot of things. And sometimes they're like, okay, what about me? What about our kids? What about this? And what about that? So there has to be a balance. There has to be a cutoff. And I think, when she got back in the full swing, because she'd been out teaching for a while, and then she started did a little bit in Tuscaloosa.
In Mobile.
Mobile. And then, now I can see herself pouring herself into her students and doing that a little bit more than usual. And I'm like, hey, you guys spend time with me now. What the world,
The tables turned.
So, but, during that time, I tell you, we had great support system. I tell you, I couldn't have done it without the coaches that I had, the coaches' wives, my mother-in-law, and the people that was around us. Her grandmother just was unbelievable. Her grandmother came and stayed with us, and Papa, Mama Doris, and so it was for us. It was just having a support system helped us get through that, and then just ultimately at the end of the day, man, we just believed that God was going to prevail through this, that He was going to do something special and something that we couldn't even fathom, and through it all that we couldn't understand some of it, and some of it wasn't for us to understand, because I say it wasn't for us to understand, but we know that that even through the midst of all of it, that we didn't lose sight, we didn't lose faith, we didn't lose anything. We didn't lose a wink of sleep. I didn't, even after the first time, the first initial shock of, you have cancer. I mean, that was kind of like, wow, how can you, no, my wife's 40 and this, like she's in good health, no, I believe I pray over her, no, this ain't, and so, to be able to get that first initial shock, that was tough. That was kind of like, the enemy saying, okay, gotcha. Let me see how you're going to act. Let me see how you're going to react. Let me see what's going to, and through it all. And I can promise you this, one of the coaches said, and I didn't tell my staff until time up until we got ready to actually start going to the doctor and stuff. it was almost time to kick off the season. I didn't tell them after she got diagnosed for a couple of months, and I just, it wasn't led to her at that point in time. And one of the coaches came. He was like, "What?" He goes, no way." He's like, she's like the life of the building when she walks in. She's like he goes, I can't. No, it's just crazy to me. And that's how she is. That's that bubbling personality and the life of the room. She lights it up, not just because she light skinned, but she lights it up, because that's who she is. And she lights it up. But it was a surreal moment, in the initial shock of it, but through it all, I just believed that, that we were going to come out of this thing, and I was going to be there with her, and whatever treatment, whatever she decided, I wanted her to have a peace through it all. And, through 6 weeks of driving every single day up there. And that was probably the most the tiresome thing about it all.
Yeah.
But going to getting radiation and doing that. So, but we've been blessed, and we're continuing to believe that she's a healed woman of God. And
she is, in Jesus' name.
Yes, Lord.
Amen.
Yes.
When I tell you, the Bowens, you are blessing so many people right now, including the Bells.
Yes.
And like I said earlier, every love story is different. Every marriage is different. One lady come in earlier. She said, "I really needed this tonight. Thank you."
That's awesome.
I got some awesome comments from people who are watching, just hearing your story. Because I think when we talked the other day and we shared it kind of through email or inbox, is that a lot of marriages just need to see hope. Yes. Like the light at the end of the tunnel. Yes. And even the testimony earlier, it was about 10 years before we feel like we got it right.
Right. Yeah.
You don't understand how that blesses me.
Remember, we're at
10 years. And
I
told you, I'm going to hold on to that in faith in Jesus' name.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
But you it's so much going on, because you have all of that going on, and you got moving, new career, then it's kick counselor's butt, and you're also balancing your family and your coaching career. And family, faith, and football.
Yes, that's it.
Yes. And, when people ask, we talk about our culture, and even in our program, that's what we talk about, family, faith, football, and take care of yourself and having fun. And I truly believe that when you keep it in perspective and your priorities correct, faith being the first thing, and truly knowing that if he's at the center of it. That's one thing I think that we've had to kind of get a grasp of, that I may have put myself in the center, she may have put herself in the center, and when we put him in the center of it all, I think that helped us to realize that, it's not just about me. And we went through 5 love languages. We did a lot of things to help out. We were intentional about our marriage growing, about it being better. And instead of, because what happens is, in the love language, you find out what she likes and what I like. Well, you find yourself doing what you like for her, and she finds out doing what I like for her, what she likes for me, and so vice versa. And you truly don't, you truly don't get to know each other, and you try. I mean, you think you listen to the other people, and you try to it until you say, what, let me sit back and let me really look and see, am I doing what she enjoys, what she likes to do, and then vice versa, and so and that's continuing. And you have to be intentional, because we are comfortable doing what we like and what we enjoy, and so I have to be intentional with it.
You said something that I really want couples to realize, that you have to invest in your marriage.
You have to.
Yes.
You have to take time and be intentional in reading books, and good books, of course, with credited authors, but also going to conferences and sitting down and really just investing in your marriage, like you would invest in your career, like you would invest in your education. You got to take that same intentionality in your marriage.
You do.
Yes.
And we've been very fortunate. I mean, in Mobile, Right Way Christian Center Church right there with Pastor
Right
V. Yeah, Right Way with Pastor V and Lady and Pastor M. I mean, just very dynamic couple, but also very transparent pastor, having somebody, a friend who and a pastor, a leader who can share in your life, even though, here we are and you're going on year 20 and still be able to share stories and times of things and I'm like, that encouraged me. You know what I mean? Like I ain't even got to tell them sometimes, but I'm just like, okay, yeah, and knowing that you got people like that around you. I think having the right people around you is also extremely beneficial. Not just always, yes, seeing, the family or seeing the parents or seeing that in itself is an education and a lesson itself, but also being able to talk to like-minded individuals. And that's one thing that we wanted to do when we cast a vision each year. We'd say, hey, we want to be around like-minded people, couples at that. And so it's not always good for me, and I shouldn't have good for me, but I'd still pour into the young single man, but we want to be around married folk, and we want to bring those single folk. And for us, it's our staff, it's the staff in our home and kind of see what it's like, and regardless of where we talk about the word culture all the time, regardless of where you go, if I came to your home and you came to ours, there's a set environment there. There's a culture there in that home.
Right.
So I want them to come and experience that here and to have an example of, because I remember we can go into certain homes and it's just stale. You're like, oh God, leave, man, let's get up out of here quick, or it's chaotic, or whatever the case may be. But I want, young men and women to be able to come to our home and see, we have lots of, our kids are quiet right now. Thank God they're hanging
The
on.
door.
Yeah, they're right at the
Keeping
door.
them out.
But, but I want them to see, that, you can do it the right way and love the Lord and just, and be an example. And I think that's, to me, we don't live a facade. When it's time for us to share what we need to share with a couple or whatever, we do it. And to what level extent we do that. And so I think that transparency of being able to do that and also have people around us to be able to do that to us, to pour into us, like Pastor V. And then, we've been very blessed with that, just like-minded people. I think.
And the other thing real quick, I would throw in there is we have learned quality over quantity because he has such a demanding career. And, we don't have every day, all day, he doesn't have the kind of job where he gets home, at 5 o'clock every day. And, we have all weekend, he's working 7 days a week, and weekends we're at football games and traveling. And, so we've had to learn, all right, this time, this early night that you get here on Thursday nights, what are we going to do during that time? Or, I get home. When he gets home, all right, I'm done with my schoolwork. I'm not working on another lesson plan. I'm not grading any papers. This is our time. We kick our kids out and say, the door is shut. Don't come in here. This is our time. And when, our last year of living in Mobile, we stayed one more year. When he came on here, we had a senior and we let him finish. And we really learned that it's quality over quantity because he was living apart. And so, man, those weekends when he'd get home, they would be packed. We would do everything that we could do, but it just made you treasure the time. And I felt like I would tell people, we do more in like 2 days, or we talk more than some people do that live with their spouses, full time, because we realize the value of our time together.
Yes.
And I know y'all experienced that too of commuting, going back and forth. And I drove 5 hours every weekend, and I left. I was very fortunate. Head coach. We practiced in the mornings at Georgia State, and I would leave as soon as we got done with that film. I would be on the road by 1 o'clock. I would eat dinner at home every Friday, be there Saturday, go to church on Sunday, turn around, go back to Atlanta while they were in Mobile. And it was tough. It was tough.
How long did you do that?
We did a year, right?
About a year.
About a year.
Yeah,
about
maybe a little over a year.
Yeah. So like you guys. So
Mm-hmm.
we commuted. I drove. Obviously in the fall, I couldn't come home as much, but during the spring, every weekend on Friday, I jumped in that car, I drove home, made sure I tried to spend time with them, eat dinner with them on Friday, or do something with my wife on Friday if we had some with church. I mean, whatever it was, I tried to make sure I was there. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, turn around, because we were back at it Monday morning at 5 a.m. So and just drove back to Atlanta every Saturday night, and it made you really appreciate each other and your marriage and your just I mean, I was very much ready to see my family.
He was ready for us to get here.
I was ready for him to get here. And
he said, "We're never doing this again."
Yeah, I did. I think I said that every time. I don't know, because usually I'm
like, "That's right, we're not."
I'm used to doing it like at the 6-month window. Usually,
this was the longest.
Yeah, usually when there's a transition in coaching, you leave as a coach after the season, and your family don't get there until May. When school get out, so you don't really get a chance to see them, and so that part of it, it's not as bad. I'm used to that. But then it went extended time. I was like, oh, hold on now.
Pumps and brakes. I didn't.
Yeah.
It got tough.
Yeah. But we've been able to grow through that. I tell you, we spent as much time as we could away when we were away, and it was very, very. When I talk about just being intentional and investing in your marriage, you have to. And she had a pretty good support system. I'll say that with friends at church and everything.
Oh yeah.
And that was a good thing.
Yeah.
For her. So.
And when you look at the struggle on the front end of your marriage, it really, I guess, made you stronger as a couple to be able to endure these transitions later on in marriage.
It's funny because I feel like so many of the things that we have experienced, and I always say, man, Lord, I didn't know when we took our vows, you were going to make sure we saw every, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer, for poor.
All happened.
You made sure we saw all of it.
All of it happened.
But it's so funny. There are so many couples or, guys and ladies that come to us and are experiencing the same thing. And I'm like, goodness, we can talk to them about a struggling marriage. I can talk to them about an illness. I can talk to them about miscarriages. There's so many things we have experienced. And I'm like, Lord, I know that there was a reason. I know that, we are here to impact lives. And so we can both empathize with people, not just say, oh, I bet that's rough. Or we know how it feels. Because
awesome. That's good. And I love that. And I can relate to that because just me, myself being 39, I'm like, God, I feel like I have been through everything. I'm only 39. I have literally buried both of my parents. And I'm like, what is this? Miscarriages, all kinds of stuff, for richer, for poorer, for better or worse. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
She put a lot of emphasis on that.
10. Remember 10 now. 10. Just stay there hanging there. 10.
Okay, thank you.
I forgot. I'm so sorry. I forgot. He's perfect. I'm sorry. I forgot.
No, I'm not.
But just that part right there alone, I'm like, God. But when I talk to women, when I sit down and talk to them and counsel them, it's just from that place of, girl, listen, I've been there. I get it. When I buried my mom at 34, I did not think that I would be praying for women that are in their 60s just now burying their moms. Or praying for women, in their 50s, in their 80-year-old moms. I buried a 59-year-old mom. So it's like that type of stuff is like, okay, you know what? No, I really understand. And the kids going to college, all of that. I'm like, he's going to college.
Yes.
Give him back. Give him back. So it really helps somebody else when you can say, I understand, I get it, I've been there. Let me give you my testimony, because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, and it just really does help others. It does.
Yes.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing.
You, the Bowens, have been a blessing tonight.
Yes, you have blessed us. You have blessed us.
The both have been the business tonight. Facebook, we want to thank you for joining us. For this awesome Marriage Monday with the Bowens. Before we go, Bowens, do you have any final words to those who are watching that you want to share?
About marriage, anything
you want to share?
Well, I would say probably my biggest piece of advice, and I always tell this to especially the young coaches' wives, is to make marriage your first ministry. And if you prioritize it the right way, everything else falls into place. That's your first ministry. So as you think about how am I going to do this? How can I prioritize, kids, my job, my marriage? Know what your first ministry is.
That's good. That's good.
Wonderfully said. I just believe that, if you're going to put the time in and you're going to put the efforts in and you're going to do all the things that it takes to make a marriage go, make sure along the way that you're truly growing in it. I think sometimes we put the years in, but we don't grow in it in the process. We think because we got the years or because we been there a long time. I've seen so many people put the years in and they talk about how long they've been married and they are far from each other. So the intentionality, be intentional, make sure you're growing in the marriage, make sure you get yourself out of the center of it, put him in the center of it, put Christ in the center of it, and truly look at what he says and how he sees marriage and how he sees his church and how that's supposed to be, that dynamic is supposed to work. So and it's, love is a commitment. I mean, it's an action. It's a thing that you've decided. I decide every day to love this woman, and I'm committed to that. I'm committed to her, and so I'll say, if you mean it, mean what you say and say what you mean, and do that with each other. So be intentional.
Awesome.
And have fun.
Have fun.
Don't forget to have fun in y'all.
Gotta have fun.
And the last thing is we're gonna end out Bowens. You guys are gonna pray for the people. Pray for the people. Some people on here tonight, they really, really.
When you get a chance, go back and read the comments.
Yes, read the
comments.
So
we will.
We bless the people tonight.
Say a quick prayer for marriages.
Good.
Okay.
Well, we'll pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you today, Lord. We thank you that you have done what you're that you were going to do on this night. We just thank you for the ministry that Pastor Bell has and First Lady, God. We just pray over their life. We pray over what they're doing. I pray that marriages and relationships are saved, dear Heavenly Father. We just thank you right now, dear Heavenly Father, that someone that we spoke to today, Lord, you spoke through us, that we've helped someone that was wanting to leave, or someone who was struggling in some shape, form, or fashion, or going through something. They don't know how they're going to get out of it. But to see that we've been able to experience every facet, Lord, I pray that we've been a blessing to someone. Lord, I just thank you for everything that you've done in our lives. I pray that even as this ministry goes forward, we pray that this is just the jump start of the live impact, that it continues to go forward like never before. We thank you for it, Lord. I pray increase favor, promotion, protection, provision over the families that are listening tonight. Pray it over the Bells family as well. I pray that you continue to guide, lead, and direct them. Heavenly Father, I pray that you give them insight, foresight, wisdom, knowledge on what to do next, the Father, to take forth your kingdom. We thank you. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Facebook. We will talk with you all later. Join us next Monday for Marriage Monday. God bless you all.
God bless.